At 1:15 in the afternoon on March 27, 1977, a terrorist bomb goes off in the Gran Canaria Airport. Then the second device is found. Alarmed with the event, the airport shuts down immediately. Every plane in the sky approaching Gran Canaria is diverted for safety. Dozens of aircrafts are sent north, to smaller regional airports on the other side of the island, a place called Los Rodeos. Los Rodeos has one runway, no ground radar, no parallel taxiways, and as the afternoon stretches on, it becomes so congested that aircrafts are parked on the runway itself. Two Boeing 747s are on the ground at Los Rodeos, waiting. The first is KLM Flight 4805, a charter flight from Amsterdam, 234 passengers, 14 crew members. And at the controls, Captain Jacob van Zanten, KLM's chief flight instructor and most senior pilot in the KLM fleet, and at that moment, the literal face of KLM's advertising campaign. His photograph was on their posters. His signature was on the certifications of the most of the KLM 747 pilots flying in Europe. There was not a man in the cockpit who would question Jacob van Zanten. The second is Pan Am Flight 1736, a charter from Los Angeles, 380 passengers, 16 crew members. Captain Victor Grubbs was inexperienced and competent and deeply uneasy about conditions at the airport. He had not wanted to land there. He had expressed that, and now he's stuck waiting for the clearance to leave. Gran Canaria reopens at 3 p.m. Both aircrafts began preparing to depart. There was just one problem. The taxiways were blocked by parked aircraft. The only way to reach the end of the runway was to taxi down the runway itself all the way to the end, and then turn around and take off back the way that the plane actually came. What Captain Van Zanten did next is part that nobody expected. He ordered the aircraft to be refueled. Not because the fuel was critically low, because he was anticipating a long wait at the gate in Gran Canaria and he wanted the full tanks when he got there. He made this decision without consulting ATC, without notifying his passengers. He made it on his own authority. The refueling took 35 minutes. Those exact 35 minutes made the difference between 583 people leaving the airport, dead or alive. Meanwhile, the fog thickened. By the time refueling was finished, visibility at Los Rodeos has dropped below 300 meters, or 900 feet. You could not see a length of a football field. You certainly could not see a full length of a runway. And there was no ground radar to show the controllers what was on it. At 5:56 p.m., both aircrafts were taxiing down the runway. KLM 4805 went first, reached the end, turned around, and positioned itself for takeoff. Pan Am 1736 was still behind them, moving slowly through the fog, searching for the next exit from the taxiway. They should have turned at C3. In the fog, with unfamiliar airport markings, they missed it. They were still on the runway when KLM was cleared. Except, KLM was not cleared. What happened on the radio in those next 2 minutes had been studied by aviation investigators for 50 years. Van Zanten requested and received his route clearance instructions to where to fly after takeoff. He heard the word clearance. He moved throttles forward. His first officer, Klaus Mears, transmitted, "We're now at takeoff." Not standard phraseology, not taking off, not holding for takeoff, something in between. Air traffic control responded, "Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you." At exactly the same moment, Pan Am 1736 transmitted, "We're still on the runway." Both transmissions arrived simultaneously. They overlapped. The combined signal produced a radio squeal. In the cockpit of KLM 4805, Van Zanten heard nothing useful. It was already accelerating. His aircraft, fully loaded, fully fueled, was rolling down the runway, on which he could not see the end of it. The Pan Am 747 emerged from the fog. Captain Grubbs saw the KLM aircraft coming at full speed. He pushed the throttles to the max power and turned hard left, trying to get off the runway. There was no time. Van Zanten pulled back. The nose rose. The KLM tail dragged along the concrete. The aircraft lifted just slightly. A moment later, KLM struck Pan Am right at the middle of its length, tearing to its fuselage. KLM 4805 continued forward, stalled, rolled to the right, and exploded. All 248 people aboard KLM 4805 were killed instantly. The Pan Am aircraft's forward section remained partly intact. Of 396 aboard, 61 people managed to escape, most of them through the holes of the torn fuselage, jumping onto the wing before the fires reached the fuel. 335 were killed. Total, 583 dead. The single deadliest accident in the history of aviation. Van Zanten was not a reckless pilot. He was the most decorated pilot KLM had. Back in 1977, There was no such thing as a crew resource management. Junior officers were not trained or culturally permitted to challenge captain's decision. Mears may have recognized the communication was ambiguous. He said nothing that stopped the takeoff. KLM released a statement after the crash that briefly, in the early draft, referred to Van Zanten as one of the victims, with no mentions of his role. That language was publicly withdrawn when investigations made the findings public. And the refueling, the 35-minute decision made without clearance, without announcement, which placed both aircrafts on the runway in that fog, at that moment, it was framed in initial reports as a routine operational decision. It was not a routine. It was the hinge on which 583 lives turned. Out of the wreckage at Los Rodeos came the framework that makes modern aviation the safest form of transport on the Earth. The word takeoff was globally restricted. It may now only be used in two contexts: by the air traffic control to issue takeoff clearance, and by the crew to read it back.